πρώην στενός συνεργάτης του Ντόναλντ Τραμπ, μίλησε στο Press Talk για τα θέματα εξωτερικής πολιτικής των ΗΠΑ, αλλά και το χειρισμό τους από την κυβέρνηση Τραμπ.
So, Mr. Bolton, you said in an article with Le Monde that toppling the Iranian regime is the swiftest and most effective way to remove the terrorist threat the West has faced. But regime change has a long history of unpredictable consequences. In your view, why is this time different?
I think the regime in Iran is at its weakest point since it took power in 1979. Across all elements of society, the economy is in terrible shape. That's what produced the latest protest. But the young people have long been dissatisfied. They know they could have a different way of life. They can see it on the internet when it works. They can see it across the Gulf. We know from almost 3 years ago when the authorities executed Mahsa Amini, a young Kurdish woman, for violating the dress code, that the women of Iran have rejected the claim of the Ayatollahs to speak the will of God. And there's also enormous ethnic dissatisfaction among the many minority groups in Iran. They don't have faith in the regime. And I think elements of the regime itself are very weak. So this is, I think, a real opportunity to give the Iranian people a chance to get a government that's satisfactory to them instead of this group of ideological fanatics really running something close to a military dictatorship at the moment.
Is there still room for diplomacy, or do you sense that we should expect some kind of a strike in the following weeks?
I don't expect the talks in Oman now to have any impact at all. I think there's simply very little to discuss. I think Donald Trump should take military action. He drew a red line when he told the Iranian protesters, keep protesting, take control of your institutions, help is on its way. So if he fails to deliver, I think that's a blow to his credibility. The real question is not, will he attack in a kind of one and done approach, or will he do this strategically, working with the opposition and finding ways to help them really affect the change inside Iran themselves.
On the Greenland point, what do you think the Europeans learned from the whole saga that took place a couple of weeks ago in terms of treating President Donald Trump?
Well, look, the only person in America I'm aware of who thought we should use military force against Greenland was Donald Trump. And the whole performance was a sad commentary on why Trump is not fit to be president. I think his threatening military force, threatening tariffs against our European allies did no good whatever. Indeed, it was very, very damaging to decades of American effort to build up relationships of trust and good faith and reliance. So I think people should recognize that Trump is an aberration. It's a pain to have to deal with him, but they should reject the idea that his approach represents a fundamental change in the American belief in the structure of the NATO alliance and the transatlantic relationship. The ties are far deeper than one American president, as bad as this one is. So in the U.S., we're going to try to work to minimize the additional damage that he does. But I hope European leaders grit their teeth and say, we can make it through this. NATO has had troubles before. We'll get through this too.
Mr. Bolton, given the growing strategic importance of the Arctic and concerns about Russia and China, what is the right way for Washington to protect its interest in Greenland without destroying the trust with Europe?
Well, a couple months ago in an op-ed in The Economist, I said that the Arctic was NATO's new soft underbelly. It's not the Mediterranean anymore as it was in World War II when Winston Churchill coined that phrase. We've all not paid enough attention to the threats posed by Russia and China. Russia's always been an Arctic power. China aspires to be an Arctic power, and the melting polar ice cap gives them an opportunity. So it's not just Greenland we should be concerned about. We have Alaska. Canada has a long littoral along the Arctic Ocean. Norway, all the NATO countries really should be worried about this possibility that a Chinese fleet could sail through the Bering Strait, transit the Arctic Ocean, and show up in the North Atlantic. This is real, and we've got time. We've come to the issue late, but we've got time to prepare for it. And we should really do it as a NATO alliance, I think.
Is our region, the East Med, a region of profound interest for the Trump's team foreign policy?
Well, I think the question of how to deal with the Erdogan regime in Turkey remains a serious issue. I think their policy in the Middle East with respect to Israel has not been helpful at all. I think they've wavered back and forth between the NATO alliance as a whole and the Russians. I don't think Erdogan really is where the main body of the Turkish population is. We've got to get this fixed. We need a strong anchor to the alliance in Turkey, as it was during the Cold War, and the issues that have been posed in the Eastern Mediterranean now become increasingly important. We can see that in the confrontation with Iran. This is a place where Russian and Chinese interests come together, and I think it's a good message to Europe that the Beijing-Moscow axis is a real thing. And that it's not just an East Asian problem, it's a global problem.
And what should smaller allies like Greece fear more from Washington today? American withdrawal from global leadership or American inconsistency?
Well, I think American inconsistency is what to worry about. Trump doesn't have a philosophy. He doesn't do grand strategy when it comes to national security. He doesn't even follow policy the way we understand that term. He is an aberration. We've never had a president like this. God willing, we never will again. And while 3 years may seem like a long time, we need to remember during the Cold War, the Soviet Union tried to split the Atlantic Alliance. It was one of their main objectives, and their failure to do that was one among several reasons why we won the Cold War. So as unsettling as Trump's behavior is, we shouldn't do the Russians' work for them.
Trump will face midterm elections in November. You know him pretty well. Will his foreign policy decisions be affected by a possible defeat in the House?
Well, I think he's very worried about a defeat in the House. And I think many Republicans are, whether they're for Trump or against Trump, for what it may mean, particularly in domestic policy. But Trump has always been transactional, ad hoc, episodic. He has a short attention span. And I think that's not going to change in the next 3 years.
And if we look closely to how Trump approaches foreign policy decisions so far, we could observe a situation where he uses force against weak adversaries who are incapable of responses. This is a very strong pattern. Could this provide a good understanding of how he handles most foreign policy decisions?
Well, I think he's so erratic. It's hard to find a pattern. I think in the case of Venezuela, for example, it was the right thing to do to remove Maduro, but he stopped too soon. And really it's the Hugo Chavez, Nicolas Maduro regime that's still in power in Caracas, still keeping the Democratic opposition who won the 2024 presidential election out of the government. If you're going to have regime change, you need to have the entire regime changed, and we haven't done it there. But this idea of a one and done approach, I think that's in effect what he did in the attack on Iran's nuclear weapons program. It was very successful as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. And that's why we're right back to the same issue again after the massacre of perhaps 30,000 Iranian demonstrators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton, for being with her tonight.
Well, thanks for having me.